Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of a CEO's Guide to Your Startup Journey, where Vikas Bhonsle, CEO of Crayon Software, will provide a guide and time tested tactics to navigating the startup landscape. In the second episode, Vikas will talk about building a robust infrastructure for a startup. He will also throw light on choosing the right technology solution provider, infrastructure integration, and the prepping and training involved. Welcome, Vikas. Glad to have you here. Without much ado, let's begin. Because when a startup is in the growth phase and they are deciding on what kind of infrastructure they need to implement, what are some of the non negotiable aspects before zeroing in on a technology solution provider?
What I've typically seen is that the startup community is very, very good with the solution and the product that they have, but they really need help on the other aspects. What are these other aspects, right? So we've said that cloud is the fundamental in this whole startup ecosystem that is thriving. Right? Everything is out on the cloud. But irrespective of we calling the cloud scalable, agile, resilient, and all that, it's very complex because the number of myriad services available on the cloud across service providers are very difficult to fathom. Different consumption models, different licensing models makes it a very hazardous landscape to navigate. And it is practically impossible for any kind of a customer, so to say, to be able to understand everything. Hence, it's important. The first most important thing is to invest in a technology provider who understands the cloud. Now, everybody out there says, we are a digital transformation expert, we work on the cloud, but it is always important to go back and check the credentials, use cases, what have they done, what's their scale, what's their presence, and so on and so forth. So the cloud, knowing the cloud is very important. Knowing different licensing and consumption models are also equally important. As you start your journey on the cloud, it's not a very easy journey. The costs kind of spiral out of control. You have other blockers in your cloud journey. So you need somebody who can optimize this cloud infrastructure on a constant basis for you, right? Manage this infrastructure for you. You don't need to get into the hassles of, I need to manage my network, I need to manage my infra, my storage, and so on and so forth. That's not the job of the startup. So invest in a technology provider who can manage this infrastructure. They have to be cloud agnostic. There are multiple clouds, and today we are living in a multi-cloud world, and most solution providers, most startups will have their solutions hosted on different cloud providers. So it's important to work with someone who is cloud agnostics, who has exposure to various kinds of tools. That's very important. Added benefit, I would say, Vaishnavi, is can they provide you a go-to-market? And typically, large global organizations having footprints across the globe, having a very large ecosystem of customers or even an ecosystem of partners, which are very easy go-to-markets for startups, are a big added advantage. Okay, and then as you really look at our world today, we are hybrid. We are generating tons and tons of data. And with cloud, what goes hand in hand is security. If your service and technology provider does not understand security, I think we are in for a massive challenge. If not the native tools on the cloud, if not for the holistic security paradigm, you should at least know what are the native security tools available on the cloud. I think that's an absolute non-negotiable in my head. And then, as organizations start to grow and data starts to grow, the ability to create a central pool of data and run analytics and draw insights that enables your business to grow faster is important. So data and AI capabilities are also, I think, very, very important. So I would say these are, in my mind, at least big non-negotiables, including understanding all the services that are available on the cloud.
Because thank you for giving us that checklist. But when it comes to implementation and integration, how should startups go about with infrastructure integration? What is the prep involved and what is the training like? And what should be the checklist for a startup to have before they start with the implementation of the necessary infrastructure?
So as your business starts to grow, the ability to have more and better infra also grows. And typically you will start looking at parameters like number of users which are hitting my app, what's the traffic, Uh, do I have peak times? Do I need burst capacities? And these are the things which become very prominent as the business starts to grow. So essentially, you're looking at a scalable platform that will help you to carry out your operations without disruption. So cloud essentially is that platform. Cloud also allows you to do a lot of load testing to be able to tell you, what's the maximum load that you want. And typically your product, infra development should run in parallel because that gives you a lot of agility when you do UAT and things like that. So that clearly is one important thing. There are various technologies that are available when you look at the infra side with the cloud. You need to look at deployment using containers, Kubernetes. You need to look at CI/CD integration set for development of the code on a continuous basis. These are things which are becoming extremely important as you look at keeping and integrating the infra. The use of what we call the next generation technologies and the understanding of the technology and investing in people that understand this technology are very, very important to make sure that your infrastructure remains agile and well integrated. If you really ask me about the checklist, I think 3 or 4 things become very important. One is, of course, scalability. And we have spoken about that a lot. I mean, it needs to be as scalable as your business grows. And that's the reason why you go onto the cloud. It's also important that you drive a lot of automation. You can't keep going and manually provisioning infra, right? Everything has to be done in an automated fashion. For example, the use of Terraforms allows you to do that. Infrastructure as a code is something that is becoming really very big today. Price, very critical that the price is low, because at the end of the day, when you're competing in a very fragmented market like our countries, you need to keep the cost per seat extremely low. So price becomes, whether we like it or not, a very, very important parameter. And then what are the native tools that you can use, which are available, that lends you a certain level of flexibility and agility, and also provides you a lot of benefits. And that becomes very, very important. So these are various things that you need to keep in mind.
With so much changes coming in the growth phase for a startup, how can startups then adjust to change, and how important it is for them during the growth phase?
And assuming you have now passed that 4 to 5 year phase that I'm speaking about, you will see that you've got a lot of customers. You will see that you are started making money. So the focus really now shifts to, what's my cash flow? What's my profitability? What's my level of sustainability? How much of recurring business do I have? Because I don't want to dig the well every single time, right? So, the focus now starts to shift from I want to acquire the customer versus I want to keep the most healthy customers with me, right? Because you've now got a very large pool of customers. And at a point in time, you start to say, I want to optimize this space. And I want to go and sell deeper services within this set of customers, which will be an optimized set of customers. And that becomes clearly something that we want to do. Typically at this stage, what I have seen is that, most organizations and most startups beginning to have what we call the growth packs, which means that the business is growing very fast. The internal processes aren't keeping pace, which tends to create a lot of frustration and demotivation among the rank and file because they are dealing with manual processes. There is a lot of data and everything has to be churned. And it just keeps growing exponentially. People join, they have their personal data that needs to be stored. You have your business data around profitability, around revenue, around churn, around growth, around year-on-year growths, and how many customers are you dealing on a consistent basis versus some customers who have gone dormant. And there's so much of data that suddenly explodes because you now need 5, 6 years, and there is not enough attention given to the fact that there needs to be some level of internal automation. Our processes need to be strong. We need to have scalable software processes that keeps our internal employees energized to keep doing what's necessary for the business. And I think that's the stage when you need to start looking at, building some kind of an internal data warehouse, looking at internal automation, analytics, and so on and so forth, because whether you like it or you don't like it, you have reached a stage where insights are very important. You have gone and acquired a large customer base, but now How do I go deeper into them becomes very critical. Insights become very critical, and you need to invest that kind of money. This is also a stage, and you would have seen it with a lot of startups, any which ways in India, that this is a stage where you say, okay, fine, now I've come to a certain level of profitability. My balance sheet looks strong. I have an optimized for a large customer base, which can be optimized. You look at diversifying. You look at alternate revenue models. So you may have a core service and you may have a associated service, or you may want to forward engineer or reverse engineer and start looking at a service. And you say, now I have that strength, and hence I will look at a very different revenue model and add to the strength of the company. And I think these are the changes that you need to adapt so that you keep growing, you keep innovating, and you keep ahead of the curve. And that's how you keep, staying successful for a very long time.
Thank you, Vikas, for enlightening us with time tested methods for infra implementation and how it can catapult a startup's growth efficiently. It was a pleasure having this conversation. Thank you.